Shalom, all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushua, Ba'ashem, Harakah, Kodash. Double honors unto the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, all well. And shalom to the whole full elect. This is Payal of the GMS London camp. And this is News and Prophecy, Prophecy and News. I have an article here from Bloomberg, off one app on my phone, right? But it's on Bloomberg. And basically the title reads, month on from Brexit, UK firms are being slowly ground down. Alright? So Lord willing, I'm going to attach the article in the description box so you can watch this little video here. But for the most part, it's going to go into all the details here in the article. So I'm going to get into it. Lord willing, you be edified. So it says, truckloads of British pig meat waiting to be shipped to Germany and stuffed into bratwursts perished at UK ports this month while stuck in line for customs clearance. Alright? So basically it's saying that there's pig meat or pork that basically was meant to be sent into Germany. They didn't make it there because it perished due to being stuck in the customs clearance line. And with that being in mind, that's basically indicating famines are coming, alright? Obviously we don't eat pork, alright? But nonetheless there's different foods on items that are being sent back and forth across that border between Britain and the EU, alright, and are gonna suffer, alright, being transported down to the fact that new regulations have to be have been put in place, and it isn't as swift a task as it was previously before, alright. So reading on, it says it's a story that barely made a ripple in the UK, so no one's even covering this, as the country's first month outside the EU was overshadowed by the vid and the grim milestone of 100,000 deaths. So everyone was tied up with that. That was more on their mind. With freight traffic well below usual levels, thanks in part to stockpiling, the overall Brexit effects were also less visibly dramatic than expected. Alright, the government avoided embarrassment of several thousand trucks queuing in Kent and was able to claim victory for its planning. Yeah, well, they're saying they're claiming victory, but that ain't the case. Businesses tell a different story, one of bureaucracy and delays that add up to higher costs. So let's look up this word bureaucracy, because it's a word that they keep throwing out there. When you watch the article, alright, when you watch the video in the article, they keep throwing it out there, and throughout the course of the article, they keep saying it. So let's get into it, because this is one of the buzzwords that we're gonna hear in the near future.
Bureaucracy.
Right, so it says bureaucracy. It says a system of government in which most of the important decisions are taken by state officials rather than by elected representatives. All right. Number 2, it says excessively complicated administrative procedure. All right, and this is what it really is. So it says excessively complicated administrative procedure, unnecessary, and as an example of the word and its use, unnecessary bureaucracy in local government, right? Similar red tape, rules and regulation. So basically, there's a complicated procedure that's been put in place that's unnecessary, right? And the reason why it's unnecessary is because of all the red tape, all the rules and regulations that have been put in place due to the fallout of the 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 EU, basically prophecy being fulfilled, that this kingdom wouldn't mesh together, all right? So it says so reading on, it says Businesses tell a different story, one of bureaucracy and delays that add up to higher costs, right? So these delays are even, burning a hole in their pocket. Elsewhere, hidden under the impact of the virus lockdowns, Brexit seeped into all parts of the economy, affecting everyone uh, from online shoppers to fishermen, car dealers, bankers, and farmers, right? Some of the issues may be short lived as firms get to grips with the situation. But as the UK, so some of them may not last that long because they're getting, once they get the gist of the procedure, then they can refine the process and it'll be smooth sailing, all right? But as the UK tries to untangle an economic and trading relationship forged over almost half a century, some frictions will linger, creating a drag on economic growth. People refer to lots of the problems as teething problems. All right, as I said before, they said that once they get through it, it'll be smooth sailing. Said Sam Lowe, senior fellow at the Centre for European Reform in London. But while businesses will learn how to fill in forms, we should acknowledge the one bureaucracy is the new reality that we should acknowledge that new bureaucracy is a new reality and there's a lot more to come, alright? So all this admin that's gotta be done, the rules and regulations, there's more tape to come. Because the same way the businesses are getting the gist of everything that's going on is the same way these governments have got to set new rules and regulations in place to basically, any like things they overlooked in the process of creating um, this Brexit deal, they're gonna come into play, right? So basically, it spells for what? More trouble down the line. The range of headaches in Brexit's initial weeks were at times for racial, far at times far farcical, such as Dutch customs officers seizing a trucker's ham sandwich because good for him, man. Because of new rules on meat and dairy imports. Popular candy, so that's how far these rules are going, to the fact that you can't even eat a ham sandwich because guess what? You've imported it from overseas and it's illegal for you to have it according to the rules and regulation in that country. Alright? So that means that what? More red tape, rules and regulations, bureaucracy has to play out. Alright? So popular candy Percy Pig hit the news as retailer Marks and Spencer Group PLC dealt with new rules about exports to Ireland. But the altered landscape also poses a question of survival, particularly for businesses that relied on hassle-free, low-cost movement products on and off the continent. So a lot of businesses may not survive. When the EU started taking ham sandwiches off lorry drivers because they say they don't know whether the meat meets EU standards, is petty and ridiculous, said Essex pig farmer Fergus Howie, who runs export business Wicks Manor. For them to be so bureaucratic at the border is really disappointing, especially when their trade to us is flowing as normal. So they're basically saying all the things we're getting from the EU is running like clockwork. But as far as products being sent over there to the EU, they're becoming problematic, all right? Which stands to basically affect the economy over here, okay, drastically. January may not even have told the accurate trade picture. Many companies stockpiled to avoid the border chaos in the early days of 2021, but those inventories won't last long. So all that stock, so even like the guy just said now about everything's running like clockwork. That's only because a lot of the stock's been stockpiled. All right, so a lot of the inventories are up, but it won't last forever. All right, so there's gonna come. So this is gonna snowball. All right, from what they're saying, government officials, and from what we know in the prophecy. All right, it's only gonna get worse. Government officials acknowledge that long jams could mount as cross-channel flows return to normal levels from around 75% currently, though they don't expect them to reach the worst-case scenarios modeled last year. They also say some difficulties are linked to the need for truckers to have a negative um, vid test, alright, rather than Brexit. So they're saying also the pandemic on top of that is basically the issue, alright. So you can see there's a truckload, pun intended, a truckload of issues that are basically gonna cause this thing to snowball, alright, and all these things are coming into play. So it says like again a negative test. So you may have someone that needs to export some items. The lorry driver, one moment, say. Yeah, they're trying to get over the border, but the lorry driver tests positive. So now he's got to wait 14 days, all right, or whatever the incubation period is before he can make a move. Or they got to bring in another lorry driver, so just to get the goods over so it don't go out of date. All right, so you can see this is something that's going to culminate into a big issue, all right? And it is already a big issue. But so reading on it says, but businesses say what was once simple is now cumbersome. Documentation, especially for loads with different types of goods from multiple suppliers, known as a groupage, is among the issues causing delays. Some haulers return to the continent empty to skip queues, which lifted freight rates for 6 straight weeks. So lucky, let me read that again. Six. Mind wandered for a moment. Some haulers returned to the continent empty to skip queues. So again, the guy said before, yeah, it's running like clockwork in terms of the EU goods coming into the UK. But it said, this is what it's saying. It says some haulers returned to the continent empty to skip queues, which lifted freight rates for 6 straight weeks, while others avoided Britain altogether. Alright, so basically the fact that they skipped the queues affected the rates over here, but then other people just avoided Britain altogether. Reading on, it says France, UK transport volume sank as firms bypassed Britain by taking direct routes to Europe, such as one launched Monday between Dublin and Amsterdam, and that's all likely to worsen when Britain introduces its new customs checks in June. Alright? So even there's more quote unquote bureaucracy that's gonna come into play with custom checks being being implemented. Alright, it says Cabinet Minister Michael Gove said the week that goods are flowing effectively. Where there are issues, the government will pull out all the stops to help them adjust. Alright? Away from the ports, there was also a shock for consumers. British shoppers buying online from the EU are getting hit with import duties. So now they charge you to import from the EU, which is crazy to even think about, alright? Because you ain't never been charged before with no import duties. Usually you get that when you're buying goods from, like, America comes to mind because I've done that before. You got to pay a charge, import duty fees, and various other places that you got to do the same thing. So it says that may fuel worries about inflation. So there's even now inflation coming to play, which is also going to lead into famine, alright, destabilization of the currency. Households' outlook for price increases is already elevated, alright? So the cost of everything's going up. And even I see a lot of places are like you go grab a bite to eat, they've upped their prices maybe by 50p a pound or whatever. They've all upped their prices, okay? And that's something that it stands to happen again and again because these people are getting affected. There's a latency in all these effects trickling down to the to the local supply, on the local scale. So it says for Britain, the drive to leave the EU was to escape what it said was its bureaucracy and crashing rules, and Prime Minister Boris Johnson got a chance to show the benefits just this week with the EU's David or CV19 vaccine campaign falling far behind the UK's. Johnson pointed to a speed at to his speed and agility that would not have been possible in the bloc. All right, so it's saying this is the good thing that the vaccinations happen very fast because they're not part of the EU. So that's the bright side. The bright side of life. We've been able to do things differently and better in some ways. All right, he told lawmakers the UK almost left without any trade deal at all, only reached an agreement on Christmas Eve. All right, even then, some industries remain in the dark about their future. Finance wasn't included in the talks and is now counting on a separate agreement that could be years in the making. In the meantime, the City of London is seeing parts of its business, such as stock and derivatives trading, slipping away. All right, so they're basically seeing as well in the financial realm of everything that their parts of their business, the trading is down. All right, so it says in the first month, issues have proved especially acute for Northern Ireland, which was a major stumbling block in Brexit talks. Images of empty shelves at supermarkets emerged in early January, and Jane Sainsbury's place was forced to stock rivals' products. That's crazy. Right, the Northern Ireland border controversy unexpectedly resurfaced late on Friday when the EU said it would trigger a Brexit clause as part of the new vaccine export controls before subsequently backtracking. Yeah, now I haven't looked into detail into that, but from what I understand, they said they weren't going to supply Northern Ireland with any of the vaccines down to the fact that I think it was basically they just wanted to write it off. From what I gathered, that they didn't. I'm guessing it's out the way, all right. But then they had to, backtrack on that, all right. But it's best to look into it, all right. So even fishing, which became a symbol of Britain's battle to take back control, when they were selling the Brexit, all right, and sticking point in negotiations, has been an early victim, despite pro-Brexit lawmaker Jacob Rees-Mogg insistence that the fish now in British waters are happier. What? Because they're getting fished by British fishermen. Come on, man. What kind of BS is this? Right, the trade deal regained rights to far less of Britain's waters than had been hoped for. All right. So they didn't even get as much as the waters they believed they'd get. Some fishermen, and this shows you this man's a devil, man, deceiver. Because if he really, when he says something, you gotta take it with a pinch, not even a pinch of salt. The pinch of salt is really the pinch of salt isn't when you're getting a whole. Salt is what the meal is, right? Not even the salt. It's just, there's nothing there, man. You gotta make your own meal with what this man says, all right? So it says some fishermen will end up with smaller quotas for the fish popular at home, such as the chip shop staples, cod and haddock. Exporters are particularly badly hit because their consignments tend to group various products requiring the most different new paperwork, customs, health, and catch certificates. So they got a myriad, a whole bag of paperwork they gotta go through if they just want to send a batch of like 5, 6 different fishes, right? Gathering of multiple different types of fish, right? So they gotta do a mountain of paperwork. So they it turns out they got a bad deal, right? Ultimately, the UK has taken a gamble up upending trade um, um, with its biggest and nearest commercial partner in the hope it will be able to force new and better trade deals with other countries for businesses shuttling goods between the EU and UK. The consequences are only starting to play out, right? So they're only starting to play out. The consequences, yo, there's gonna be heavy consequences that are gonna have to be, a penalty has to be paid. Proximity matters, said former UK trade negotiator David Henig. Seamless trade is a thing of the past, right? So everything's changing up. So I want to read this. So obviously you got to bear in mind Jeremiah 28:8. Let me read that quickly, because this is a kingdom. Actually, no, let me not read that. Let me just go keep on. Basically, we prophesy against what many wicked kingdoms of evil, war, and pestilence, and famines also mentioned, right? So basically, in saying that, this is one of those kingdoms, all right, and they're basically utilizing all of that. This is the peak of it all as well. It tells you in Job 9:24 the earth is given into the hand of the wicked, and it tells you when the Hellenistic period came into play, the Greco-Roman Empire, starting with the Greeks. Basically, that was the beginning of evils, all right. Evils multiplied upon the earth, all right. And now this is the little season where Esau's being loose to basically run it and show wickedness at its greatest level, a time like never before. Right, so this is Matthew 24:7. It says, "For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places." All right. Let me read it again. It says, "For nation shall rise against nation," and we're seeing that. Okay, we're seeing various nations rise up against nation. Example, you got China and India. They're at odds. You got the Armenians, and I'm trying to remember the other border. But there's war over there. North of Syria with the Armenians, and I believe Georgia. All right, but between that area, all right, you got multiple different skirmishes breaking out all over the earth, kingdom against kingdom. And that's what we're seeing right now, kingdom against kingdom. All right, and there shall be famines. All right, this is what we're seeing happen. This is got all the telltale signs of a famine coming. All right, and the word famine means a lack of bread. All right, so there's going to be a great lack of bread because of due to what? Inflation. China is a staple of example in this modern day that we live in. They will I remember China's ahead of the curve in the sense that this pandemic started out with them. All right, they basically said that they were running low on food supplies, that they couldn't supply everyone. So what they did is they doubled the price, but it didn't stop the waves of people coming to buy the food. All right. And I remember this when this first kicked off the pandemic, right? You had people panic buying, right? I remember we couldn't get certain things, so we went to a corner shop, and when we went to the corner shop, basically the boss man, you could see it in his boss man, or the gaffer, the guy that ran the store, basically. He basically when we were buying certain things, you could see the fear in his eyes, like damn, there might not be food tomorrow. And he had to say that, look, guys, don't take that much. Just take limited amount. There'll be some tomorrow. But he could tell there was some humility in his tone, because he really hoped. I hope there's some tomorrow, right? Because he wants to make the money hand over fist, but it's like, am I gonna have any food to eat, right? And obviously he's thinking about all the other stuff that comes into play. But it says, and there shall be famines and pestilences. We're in the midst of a pestilence right now called, the CV19, the vid, all right? And earthquakes in diverse places. So there's going to be earthquakes in diverse places, which should keep happening. Right. So with that, man, I pray you edify to the next one. I say shalom.